Crypto is all about timing. It's all about doing the opposite of what the masses are doing. Be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. Now, currently prices tend to go down. A lot of people are realizing losses. So does it make sense to buy now? Because have a look at the realized profit and loss ratio over time for Bitcoin. This is a 1-year chart, and whenever we realized losses, so whenever we went in red, it was at least short term a good buying opportunity. Currently, we again hit those points. And so maybe over the next few days, we see another recovery, as we have seen multiple times in the past. There is a real chance though that this time is different, because it seems like the current depression in the crypto prices is not due to things happening within crypto, it's due to external factors, namely traditional finance. The S&P 500, so the leading measure for stock performance in the S&P 500, is currently going down due to worries about the tariffs. Since the 19th of February, the S&P 500 declined by 12%, and that's quite a lot in the grand scheme of things. We have seen similar declines in August, September of 2023. And yes, the COVID crash was much larger. But if we go even further to the past, then valuations seem to be quite high. This here was the dot-com bubble crash. This was the global financial crisis. The vertical line is when Bitcoin started. So Bitcoin was born out of the global financial crisis. It never really saw a real contraction in equity prices. And what we've got over here is an even longer term chart. So this starts in 1871. This is the price to earnings ratio historically for the S&P 500. Here's the dot-com bubble crash. Here's the global financial crisis. And again, Bitcoin was born over here. It never really saw a real contraction. And the current slight decline in the stock market could just be the beginning. Now, why is that a problem? Stocks and crypto are two different things. The issue is this here. At the top, we see the S&P 500, again with that vertical line. At the bottom, we see the 1-year correlation coefficient between the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. And in the early days of Bitcoin's existence, we didn't really see Bitcoin and stocks moving in the same direction at the same time. We just fluctuated around zero. There was no real correlation. But in the last 5 to 6 years, this has changed. We now tend to be above zero. We tend to be around 0.5 to 1. Now, correlation coefficient of 1 means that two assets move in the same direction at the same time. -1 means they move in opposite directions at the same time. And 0 just means that there is no real connection between the two assets. So seeing the correlation coefficient getting closer to 1 over time means that now traditional finance has more and more impact on Bitcoin. If we do see a crash in the S&P 500, then very likely we're going to see a crash in Bitcoin as well. Have a look at the realized price, so the average cost basis of short-term holders versus medium-term holders. Short-term holders are in red, so that's the wallets that held Bitcoin for less than a month. Medium-term holders is in green, so that's below half a year. The depressions have different lengths, so that's when the average cost basis of the short-term holders is below the medium-term holders. If we just stay with 2 to 3 months, everything is fine, but there is the real chance that we go down for 13 months. And this was a depression of more than 70% in the Bitcoin price, which, by the way, would put Bitcoin relative to its all-time high at roughly $40,000. Have a look at the total supply in loss, right? Ideally, we want to buy when people are maximum fearful, and we aren't there yet. We might only be halfway there, right? That's when Bitcoin was at around 16K. Now check this out. This is the realized price of the supply that's in loss. When the current price has a lot of distance to the realized price of the supply in loss, that's when people are most risk off. That's when people tend to stop selling. But currently the difference isn't really that large. Here's a very long-term chart, the market value to realized value supply in loss, and it tends to bottom out at very similar levels. And again, we are very far away from a potential top. Things could go much, much worse. It already feels quite bad because a lot of altcoins are down 60, 70, 80%, but Bitcoin hasn't really contracted that much yet. The long-term holders are still in aggregate in profit. It's only the short-term holders that are currently in losses. Now, nobody knows for sure where Bitcoin is going from here, right? Nobody has a crystal ball. The most important thing, I believe, is to have somewhat of a plan. In case Bitcoin goes down another 20, 30, 40%, we should be able to continue to buy the bottom, because at that point, Bitcoin will be cheap. So if we've got a high savings rate and our wealth relative to our income isn't yet that large, we can simply just save and buy the bottom. If our wealth relative to our income is already pretty large, we've got several years of income saved up, then we might want to be more diversified, that we might want to own also some gold and some silver that we can then sell potentially if Bitcoin and stocks continue to crash. It's important to stay flexible. It's important to be able to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. It's not always best to be 100% risk on, because sometimes risk on assets do contract quite a bit in price. Now, when things don't look that great, when most altcoins are going down and when they especially underperform versus Bitcoin, I think actually it's time to make money. It's not time to exit the market. This is what most people do. I think that bear markets are actually the easier markets to make profit. Because have a look at this screenshot here. This is a premium member that shorted a token with a modest leverage of 3x and that made 25%. This is his message, tagging me, I made my first profit, thanks. I'm not sharing the exact asset because we are still betting on falling prices of that asset. Again, there are some very weak altcoins that sometimes pump that we can then short, where we can make very easy profit during times like this. Most altcoins are now deflating. It's an always repeating story. What we've got over here is XRP relative to Bitcoin. So this is a relatively long-term chart starting in March of 2021. And whenever we see positive news, when all of attention goes to XRP, the price is rallying, but then sooner or later we do get our crashes. And it's relatively straightforward to make money with those crashes. We're simply looking at what currently pumped a lot, where didn't we see any new all-time highs, but where are we likely going to stay in the trading range, and then we just bet on falling prices. And especially when there's currently a bear market, when a price relative to Bitcoin goes down by 74%, we can make more than even just 74%, right? We can lever this up slightly as well. Or have a look at Dogecoin, right? The same story. Elon Musk tweets about Dogecoin, it goes up, and then afterwards the attention moves to the next token, and we just see a continued price decline. This is again 74%. We made money shorting Dogecoin, by the way. So I'm sharing all the trades that I do betting on falling prices with all the premium members. There are also alternative ways where we don't have to be that active, right? There are some altcoins that are that bad in tokenomics, where the supply is increasing that quickly relative to the demand, that the underperformance relative to Bitcoin is pretty much just a straight line. So what we've got over here is Balancer relative to Bitcoin, and it simply just continues to go down. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this position here is because the tokenomics aren't as bad anymore compared to a few years ago, right? I was shorting this throughout the whole of 2024, and I've closed that short now. But the reason why charts like this exist, the reason why we can make money with this, is because the supply increases over time. But this is now Balancer, and a year ago we saw how the circulating supply would still go up by like 30-40% within a year. This is not anymore the case. So relatively speaking, Balancer doesn't expand that quickly anymore. That's why the underperformance is slowing down. That's why I'm now sharing this publicly on YouTube, right? I didn't share this on YouTube in 2023 and 2024. This is where I only shared this in premium. We really have to be realistic about the market. I believe strongly that the long term wins the game. It's always about being consistent. It's always about beating the market over the long term and have proper risk management. Making money in crypto is not just about finding the next 100x meme coin. That can work with a lot of research during a bull run, and when we've got a lot of influencers that all coordinate each other that then push up the price. But in a bear market, that doesn't work. When there's no new investors joining, that's not the way to make money. I mean, just have a look at this. This is the top 100 tokens. And what we've got over here is Bitcoin, and this is ordered by the performance in the last year. We've got 16 altcoins that outperformed Bitcoin in the last year. 2 of those altcoins, by the way, are gold derivatives. So this is just the gold price going up. So in the end, we've only got 14 out of the top 100 cryptocurrencies that did better than Bitcoin. The vast majority of altcoins did much worse than Bitcoin. And that happened during a period where Bitcoin actually went up. Bitcoin during the time period went up by 25% almost. This is something most people don't understand. Most people think that when Bitcoin is going up by 25%, that the altcoins in theory should go up even more because they are smaller in market cap, they're more volatile, they're somewhat of a levered Bitcoin, but that's only true to a degree. Bitcoin can go up by 25% in a year and still the vast majority of altcoins does worse than BTC. So instead of trying to find the next 10x meme coin, when it's all just player versus player and when no new people enter the space, instead of trying to beat the impossible game, why not get the odds in our favor, right? When more than 80% of altcoins in the top 100 do worse than Bitcoin, why not bet on that? Why not bet on the 80% doing worse than BTC and make money with that? That's personally what I currently do, and that's also what the premium members are doing. That's how short-term gains like this happen while the vast majority of people are just losing. Now, I have not seen any other influencer being that transparent about their own performance, but I want to share what kind of performance I make, and I also want to share this over time, as in not just I have made X%, but I want to share how volatile the game actually is. Crypto trading is a game of both luck and skill. And the longer we are engaged, the more trades we do, the more the skill component will be stronger compared to the luck component, right? It's pretty much like in a casino. If you play versus a casino over the long term, you will lose money. You might win money short term, right? Because the luck is on your side, but over the long term, the odds, the expected value is what plays out. And so what we see over here is a scatter plot. How much did I outperform buying and holding Bitcoin every single month in the last 3.5 years? Some months have been incredible outperformances over buying and holding Bitcoin, right? The very best month was over here with 25% outperformance, but we also had pretty poor months like over here, an underperformance of 18%. So the thing is fluctuating. What we've got as a dotted line here is a 12-month moving average. Most 12-month averages have been positive. When we average out all of those data points, we come to 2.1% per month. So in other words, on average, I make alpha over buying and holding of 2.1% per month. So when we compound this, it's a bit over 25% per year. Now, is this enough? Depends on how much you're betting, right? If you only have $100 to invest, it doesn't matter. But if you've got $10,000, maybe even more than that, it does matter because again, this comes on top of Bitcoin's performance. And so here's what I believe Bitcoin will do over the long term. Instead of just looking at the direct prices, I prefer to look at the realized price, so the average cost basis. Over time, the current price is hovering around that realized price, like the average cost basis, but the cost basis itself tends to increase quite steadily. And this increase over the last few years was roughly 25% per annum, 30 to 25%. I'm rather conservative, I say 25%. So we've got a bit over 25% per annum from trading. We've got a bit over 25% per annum from just buying and holding Bitcoin. So compounding this again is more than 50% per annum. If you've got more than $10,000 and you put this into 50% per annum long term over the next 3-4 years, that kind of money does matter, right? Isn't that better than trying to gamble it all away with meme coins? Meme coins are ultra risky, and that's why most people just put a few $100 in them, maybe $1,000 here and there. But if you've got a strategy that's somewhat limited in risk and where you have a long-term track record, then putting in more money, allocating more of the overall wealth towards such a portfolio does make sense, right? Then we can play in the tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. We don't have to just bet $100. Now, everything I've just explained is in more detail in the premium membership in the tutorial section. There's more than 100 premium tutorials in the membership, and it's not just about shorting, it's not just about betting on falling prices, it's also about risk management, about asset allocation, about on-chain analytics, etc. etc. Besides the tutorials, I also share, of course, what kind of trades I do so that you can simply just copy trade me, right? You don't have to go into every single altcoin in detail all the time. I dare to say that most crypto communities probably lost money in the last few weeks. And I don't think that's true for the premium membership here. I do believe that the vast majority of our members made money because we were prepared. So feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first week and I refund you 100%. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. Helps the channel grow. See you again on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers.